What's up, guys? Today we are tackling one of two of the most components of a bowl of ramen, and it depends on who you talk to who thinks this is the most important one. But today, as you can see by the flour, we are tackling noodles. More specifically, we're going to be leaning into Ivan Orkin's toasted rye noodle recipe here today. The science behind ramen noodles is actually really amazing, and it's why they're so gosh darn good relative to just the spaghetti you buy at the market, why it's so different. So when you're making ramen noodles, they have this alkaline agent in them called kansui. And you can buy a kansui solution that's usually potassium bicarbonate or potassium carbonate or sodium carbonate. You can actually also just make it at home, and that's what we're gonna do, or kind of already did, but I'll tell you how you do it. And all you need to do that is bake some baking soda, which baking soda creates an alkaline agent for your ramen noodles. And the alkaline agent in the noodles is what gives them that chew, right? That like bite and that mouthfeel. And then once you get into hydration percentages of the dough and the flour mix that you use in the dough, the world is really your oyster. And usually the way it gets broken down is like 30% or less hydration is for like a tsukemen or a tonkotsu, where you really want the noodles to soak up that broth. The problem is that really low hydration doughs are really, really hard to make at home. They might break your pasta maker. The dough's probably just gonna disintegrate. And they also get really soggy really fast, which can be not ideal depending on the bowl. And like the number one thing in America that we really struggle with is we eat our ramen too slowly. Like if you ask any ramen shop in America what their biggest pet peeve is, ramen's not meant to be sat over and eaten for an hour. You should be like dripping sweat and just like inhaling the whole time you're there. And it's actually considered like kind of rude to be in Japan and to eat ramen slowly. And if you don't finish it, if you just lollygag around, especially if there's a line, they're not gonna want you to come back there. So yeah, today we are going to make Ivan Orkin's recipe. His noodles, at least for making them at home, I don't know if this is exactly the recipe he uses at Ivan Ramen, but for making them at home, they're about 40%, 42% hydration, which is a really, not really high hydration ramen, but it's on the higher end. And it makes sense because he's most famous for his double soup shio ramen, and usually with shio ramen it has this really light, bright flavor. You're a little bit less worried about like getting the fat and getting the broth like soaked into the noodles like you are with the tonkotsu. We're also actually making these to try them in tonkotsu ramen, so we're gonna see how that goes for us. But yeah, I've never, so as a guy who literally sold ramen to people during quarantine successfully, I've had a few people tell me it's better than ramen they had in Japan. I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I do make really, really good ramen. I've never made my own noodles. Feel free to blacklist me now. But that's changing today. We're gonna make them right now. Let's get into it. Right, so first off, you're gonna toast 75 grams of dark rye flour in a pan over medium to medium-low heat. The key here, you don't want it to burn, you just wanna get a few wisps of fragrance of the rye. It should make your kitchen smell fantastic. Once that's toasted, or while that's toasting rather, you're gonna combine 10 grams of baked baking soda, which you can get by baking baking soda for an hour at 250, and whisk that with 13 grams of kosher salt. You're gonna need to whisk this really vigorously. It's kind of stubborn. After you've got that whisked, you're gonna combine 620 grams of bread flour, 300 grams of cake flour, and add in your toasted rye flour. You'll probably have lost about 5 grams during toasting. That's completely okay. Now that kansui got dissolved in 430 milliliters of water also. Then you're going to do your best to get your bowl attached to your stand mixer, and over medium-low heat, very slowly stream in about 1/3 of your water, kansui, and salt mixture at a time, and just repeat that process until you start to get something that vaguely resembles a dough. It almost kind of resembles like shaggy strands of hair. You can see here what that ends up looking like. It plays like magic sand, if you remember that from when you were a kid. And then once you have that something loose combined, you're going to turn that into or onto a work surface and just start kneading by hand for a bit. Once you've kneaded this by hand for a while, if you're anything like me, you're going to realize that that's just not going to work. And you're going to shove this into a plastic bag.
And in that plastic bag, you're going to zip out all of the air, seal that shut, and then take a rolling pin to that so you can try and distribute the dough as evenly as possible throughout that bag. And once it's distributed evenly, you can see with the rolling pin, I'm just trying to get a nice rectangular sheet. You're going to keep doing that until you get it basically spread out throughout the entire surface area of the bag. Now, I also realized that the bag wasn't going to work with the rolling pin, so I just started dancing and kneading the dough with my feet. And then I got really hungry, so I recommend creating a snack for the feet kneading experience, and you should end up with something like that. Then you're going to change for jiu-jitsu, if you're anything like me, and get ready to start rolling this. Trim any excess that isn't even, and then you're going to trim lengthwise so that you can roll this through your pasta machine. You're going to start at the widest setting and roll this through, and then you're going to laminate the dough. So fold it over itself, move the notch one notch wider, and just crank that through. Laminate the dough one more time, and then you're going to feed that through your pasta machine one final time. And once you've fed that through, and hopefully yours doesn't get all jagged and ruined like mine, you're going to start feeding that through the thinnest layer of your pasta cutter. Now, as far as the thickness goes, the world's your oyster. I went to the 4th narrowest setting on my pasta cutter. I tried a few different things. I tried the 5th narrowest and the 6th narrowest as well. I found that the 4th was kind of the sweet spot. Then you're going to just feed this through, give that sweet, sweet pasta a look, and you can see that fresh toasted rye flour just flecks in there. It's absolutely gorgeous. You want to trim this into about 140 gram servings, toss that in potato starch, and then you can wrap each of the 140 gram servings individually in plastic wrap and either fridge or freeze them if you're not using them right away. You can boil these for about 60 seconds to 90 seconds, and you will be ready with fresh ramen noodles at any point in time. And that's it. We're going to go into how you use these noodles in preparing an entirely from scratch bowl of ramen at home throughout the rest of the series. So please give this video a like, comment, subscribe, and follow along on my ramen journey so I can share this passion with all of you. Peace.